2025 is the collective awakening of a lifetime. Seriously, this may be the most important video I've ever made. If you watch any video, watch this mother effing video. We are going to astro nerd out over here, okay? Because there's so many things I need to share with you about this year, and I know I'm super late, okay, but better late than never. They will truly make movies about this time one day, you guys. This will be in the books. This will be going down in history as revolutionary time, and I am not even playing with you. This is the start of a new era, and this new era is a huge mother effing shift. It is a great awakening and a huge disillusionment, which is part of the awakening process. Some will be excited to build the new future. Others may escape into fantasy, and some will try to hold on to the past and the power structures that are crumbling. So as I'm sure you know, if you're into any ounce of spirituality at all, which I'm guessing you are if you watch my astrology videos, before you can begin something new, you have to clear the old. So 2025 is an in-between year, I've been calling it, where we are closing out massive old chapters of our lives, cleaning shit out, letting shit go, cutting out what doesn't need to be there, the shit that doesn't need to be there, that we've been clinging to, that just doesn't freaking belong anymore. But also 2025 is the start of a whole new freaking thing that's starting to come to light this year. So this is a year about having faith, letting go, having hope, cleaning up the shit that we no longer need in our lives, and ending old chapters for good, while also finding who we are again in big brand new ways. So it's like purification and hope and faith and spirituality, but also growing some fucking balls. This year, as I'm going to talk about, is such a mixture between Pisces and Aries, and so we have this like, yes, live and let live, and like let everything go and have faith, but also have big balls and be direct about what you really want and step into your confidence, step into your sense of conviction. So I want you to take a second and think about every new beginning in your life. Wasn't it also simultaneous with some kind of ending? Because every ending is a new beginning. Especially the first part of this year, the first few months this year, this is about clearing karma, making space. It's going to be a theme on and off all year, but especially the beginning few months of this year. This year is also about truth. And truth can be dark and scary and inconvenient for some. People will likely have a hard time accepting the truth, even when it's right in front of their faces, which is why this year is such an amazing representation of the Matrix, which we'll get into in a bit. Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna focus on both the light and shadow, the positive and negative sides of a lot of the transits that I want to talk about. We're basically going to go through the big transits of the year that are happening in 2025, and I'm going to give you my interpretation about them, the story that I think is being told here, and I think this is going to help you align and thrive way, way more with the energy of this year. But also remember that astrology doesn't necessarily dictate our life. It is not dictating you. You have self-will, you have power, you always have choice, we always have free will. I'm definitely not making this video doom and gloom, so I don't think you have much to worry about here. But regardless, just listening to any astrology, like, we do have to be careful about who we listen to when it comes to our futures, especially if they are coming from a place of fear themselves. As you are going to hear, this year is so much about mind control. Who has a hold of your mind? What has a hold of your mind? Are you thinking freely? Have you basically been told to think a certain way? A lot of people are going to be waking up in very big mental ways this year. Also, there's just enough out there to do with the doom and gloom and the potential darkness of these transits, and I think a lot of that stuff is coming from people that have their own narrative or that are attached to a certain narrative about what's coming and what this all means. But astrology can surprise us, and I know this because I went through a doom and gloom astrology phase myself, and so I know what that's like, and I know how it can feel to be so attached to a narrative because of your own perception and think that everything that's coming is like the next big drastic thing, that it's gonna be really bad. I totally understand that, but basically this video is not gonna be all doom and gloom. So I have set this up in a way that's by the time of the year, so like the first part of the year, the second part of the year, the third part of the year, fourth part of the year, but also some of these transits are going to be happening in the background all year, and I'll tell you which ones those are when we get to them, so don't worry. But this is gonna be a long video if you haven't already noticed, so definitely get comfy, grab a snack, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say, the first few months of this year is going to be about making space. Now, that is going to be a theme on and off all year, as we have the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, which I will talk about in a little bit. But if you think about it, there's the manifestation principle, right? Like, space has to be created before creation can happen. Creation happens when there's a void, which is why new moons are about creation, right? Which is why the baby comes in the womb, right? The seed is planted in the soil. Space happens, creation happens in the dark when there is space created. So the first few months of this year and on and off all year, space needs to be created. It's the same kind of principle that I kind of found a few years back about raising your vibration. So many people in the spiritual community talk about, how do you raise your vibration? Like, how do I raise my vibe, right? A lot of people think, oh, you have to add this and this and that to your routine, and you have to start doing this and you have to start doing that, and you have to say affirmations and you have to write it down, and you have to add this and you have to go for a run or change your diet. And what I have found is that raising your vibration is not about adding more shit, it's about subtracting shit. It's about clearing space, making mother effing space, okay? That is what manifestation is about, and raising your vibration is about as well. You must let things go first that are no longer working. This year is also very much about listening to your soul. And yes, I'm reading off notes because I have a shit ton of notes I've been taking for months that I want to talk about, and I want to make sure I stay on track. This year is also about listening to your soul, okay? And accepting that kind of anything is possible. Anything is possible in a year like this. Like, we are living through really, really big times, okay? We haven't seen game-changing times like this since 2020. I'm not just being dramatic. I haven't even said things like this in a long time, okay? So, but this is a big mother effing year. Everybody's lives is changing to some degree this year in really big ways. This year is also about closing the gap of the illusion between who we really are and who we've been thinking that we are. That gap is closing. It's been an illusion. We've been under some kind of false reality. The illusion of what we thought the world was and the reality of what it really is starting to be shown this year. What we thought the world was, what we thought things were, what we thought was happening is not what many people think is happening in some way, shape, or form. Astrology is saying that so loud and clearly this year. That we've been under some kind of spell, we've been under some kind of illusion, and things are going to get really, really clear and really transparent for us this year. It's going to be the start of it. Like I said, this year is like a real life matrix, and you'll see that by a lot of the astrology transits that I talk about and what they all mean. But I mean, it's like perfect. It's just so much. There's so much that ties into the Matrix movie this year, and just metaphors with the Matrix. So many people are going to be waking up to the fact that they have been under a spell. They're not living the lives that they thought they were. And they're also the lives they thought they wanted are not really what they want. They've been like conditioned or brainwashed to think that, right? Who they really are is not who they really thought they were, right? What's going on is not really what they thought was going on. Like, this is going to be so huge. And like I said in the beginning, some people are going to take great advantage of this and be off to the races and creating what they want to see in the world. Other people are going to be escaping through, escapism methods and going into a different reality. Other people are going to be clinging to the crumbling structures that are falling and that are no longer going to be there, likely within the next few years. Okay, so it's a crazy time. I promise I am not being just overly dramatic here. I choose to be excited about it personally and choose to focus on what I want to create in the world rather than all the fear and the doom and gloom. Personally. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is Pluto in mother effing Aquarius, as we know. Pluto in Aquarius is basically bringing the matrix down. This is the matrix crumbling, and this is one of the biggest signs of that, okay? Also, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. Are there really conspiracies at this point? But whatever, right? I'm an Aquarius moon, Saturn in Aquarius, but Pluto in Aquarius is bringing the mother effing matrix down, okay? This is the rise against corruption, oppression, mind control, media, propaganda, anything. It's basically the few against the many, the inverted triangle or the upside down triangle, right? Like, it's bottom up instead of top down, right? So this is that kind of energy. The revolution of the mind, with Aquarius. This is a air sign, a fixed air sign, right? So this is like revolutionary things to do with the mind, to do with technology, and to do with the people, the ordinary everyday person, the masses, right? This is giving power, Pluto, back to the people. Aquarius. Of course, because it's Aquarius, there will likely be different groups that don't agree with this or different resistances to this, right? Like I said, there's going to be people that are still hanging on to the old because it's almost scary to face the truth, right? The truth is not pretty. I've had a couple like worldly awakenings over the last few years and basically have seen a lot of different things. And I'm sure there's a lot more I don't even know, like I'm sure there's a lot more out there that all of us are going to be shocked by. Some of us are going to be like, oh yeah, I did see that coming, or I did know about that already. But there's going to be so much more. Like, we are at the tip of the iceberg here. This is no longer about being special with, Leo energy and it being all about, entitlement and entitled people. With Pluto and Aquarius, it's opposing Leo. So it's no longer going to be all about the few or, individuals that are not in congruence with just like the ordinary, everyday, down to earth person. I think for a while, it's like society or the masses or a lot of people have been kind of like almost pushed to like accept certain things about the individual, like be who you are, boo, like love yourself, love your authenticity, like shine for who you are, shine for your identity. But the shadow side of that is like when you start thinking that you're better than, you're entitled, like you expect everybody else to change or society to change for you to just be you, right? Like the, like celebrities, and this is something we're going to talk deeply about in this video, but like celebrities, like during COVID, right? Like it was almost like rude and offensive to see how they were dealing with it, or to see them, crying in their mansions and like, expecting everybody to feel sorry for them. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, like you are so disconnected, Aquarius, from the everyday individual, from the everyday person, from the ordinary person, right? Like that's what I'm kind of talking about here. That's a great example of what I'm talking about. So this is no longer about being special and it being all about the individual, so much so that ordinary people have to change or conform to accommodate the specialness or the entitlement of certain people. And so Pluto opposing Leo basically is saying that, entitled people that have once been thought as like regal or that have like, stars or like, whatever, are getting a very rude awakening during this time. And we've already been seeing a build up to this, right? Like I know I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but we're going to continue to see a lot of people get rude awakenings like this and eventually fall. I don't think it's going to be really cool anymore to be that kind of person, especially if you're just not a good person, right? Like if you're not a good person, if you're not really authentically and genuinely like from the heart space, like that's going to be shown. I think that those that have been entitled or been involved in corruption, again, Pluto, crimes, things that we likely can't even imagine and only have touched the tip of the iceberg of the darkness that some people are involved in. We've been seeing this with like Diddy and all of these things that have come out about these people that we once thought were like these, just glorious people that like so many people idolize, which is very Leo, right? Like so many people idolize. It's like it's coming out that they're really like fake, like it's all been a mask. And so Pluto and Aquarius is like ripping the mask off of people. And, it's so interesting to see this happening. So Pluto is opposite of Leo. Therefore, those that aren't genuine, who aren't doing things out of a genuine love for humanity, Pluto and Aquarius, a genuine love for humanity, a genuine like, look, I'm different, or I genuinely want to help humanity. And if, they are wearing a mask, it will be ripped off eventually, right? If they are not, then they will succeed. And these are the people that are going to reshape our future, reshape our systems, reshape what is coming in this new era. These people have the chance to be revolutionary figures for our future and for what's coming. Okay, so, really think about people that are literally, you know, saying that they're doing this for humanity. They're doing this for the people. They are doing things with their actions that puts the power back into the people's hands, right? Like that's what we really want to look for here. And not just doing it for themselves. Actions will speak louder than words right now. You can't trust words right now. Those that are corrupted in high regal places will be exposed. Like I said, systems, media, tech corruption will be exposed. Social systems that have not worked are going to crumble. This stuff is going to crumble, and at first we may not all realize why, or we may not all see it, but don't worry, the truth is going to be revealed eventually. So this is basically the dawn of a new age in itself with Pluto and Aquarius. Okay, like this is like a 20-year transit basically. So it's no longer about celebrities and this like popularity contest and fame and fortune and like, you know, that's just not going to be relatable anymore. And I even talked about this in my predictions back in like 2020 and 2021 that this was going to eventually fall, and I think that we've seen that it has. Realizing these false people that wear masks that aren't who they say they are, old way of worshiping kind of Hollywood and these like false idols that have ties to like, you know, corrupt, creepy crimes or even controlled themselves. This will all be exposed even more. I do believe that like this is the end of like the whole celebrity thing for at least a while, and we're going to talk more about what's going to take its place in a little bit. But so the fakeness will be glaringly obvious and already is becoming that way. I think the social systems, ideologies, and divisive separation tactics that have been used to control people are going to be brought to light in really, really huge ways. My biggest advice with this is that we must accept the truth. We must accept the truth beyond our biases, okay? Even when that truth is hard. Because there have been so many players involved in, you know, and astrologically, like this is what these transits are about. It is about exposing corruption that has been in powerful places. Pluto in Aquarius is a revolutionary transit that deals with the people, the masses, and giving power back to the masses, giving power back to the people, okay? And what the people want and what feels right and just for all. Because I think most of us, the majority of us, want to see the same things. Like we want to see freedom. We want to see more power to the people. We want to not be told what to think. We want to not be censored. We want to not have corruption, you know, and it's just like the question of, well, who is it corrupt? Is it this person? Is it that person? Was it this administration? Is it that administration? So we already see these kind of Aquarian, Pluto and Aquarius topics coming up. Right. And, you know, I think that so many of the things that we've seen, the government programs, the social experiments, Pluto and Aquarius that we've seen, these things are going to come to light. I mean, I think in a lot of ways they have over the years. I definitely 100% believe that our government has been experimenting on its own citizens. And I definitely 100% believe that many people have been brainwashed and programmed. And even though I consider myself to have had many awakenings at this point, I'm sure I even am to some extent. We all likely still are. We likely have no idea how far the programming and brainwashing and the corruption goes, but we are going to see it's going to crumble. This is a revolutionary time that is reshaping the power structures in the world. I know a lot of people are scared and a lot of people have this looming fear for humanity because they think that we're going in a wrong direction, but I can tell you that truth is going to be exposed and already is being exposed. It just may not be, you know, again, Aquarius, these divisions, it may not be the way that you think it is or by the people you think it should be or like whatever, right? There's always going to be some kind of resistance, right, to what's happening. I think that those that, you know, cling to their biases and cling to the programming and cling to what they've been kind of conditioned to believe or conditioned to think, you know, by the matrix or by the corruption and the corruption that's been involved in our world and in our governments for several decades now, are going to have a tough time with this. So even those, like I said, that are aware and that consider yourselves awakened will likely still be in shock too by what comes to light, you know. But this is all further validated by Uranus moving into Gemini at one point this year, which we'll get into later. But I think we already see this. Like, no matter which way you look at it, no matter which side that you're on, we're seeing big topics of resistance, revolutionary, the old systems or the old ways of doing things crumbling. Certain people that basically believe that our government is exposing the corruption, and other people that believe that they have some kind of agenda behind it, right? Like, whichever way it is, it's bringing up Pluto and Aquarius is bringing up these topics of corruption and bringing the power back to the people. And so again, look at actions, not words, because that's where you're going to really see if, I think, who someone's character is and if they are really for the people during this confusing time. And have hope, because that's very Piscean, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I do think it's interesting because Aquarius, the mythology behind Aquarius is Ganymede. And Ganymede, I don't know too much about mythology, but I know that Zeus kind of kidnapped him and made him immortal and made him somewhat like divine or something. But he was also like, I think, half human and dealt with like the people. So he was like one of the gods, but also one of the people and for the people. And so I think that these questions of like the elite or the billionaires versus the ordinary people and which ones are good, which ones are bad, or are they all bad? I think, Ganymede and the mythology behind Ganymede can be, we're very much seeing this in like real time with billionaires that we have here in the US that are saying that they are for the people and that are exposing corruption and completely, changing the way that things have been done for so long. But it's like, I think the big question that people have, at least people that aren't on that side, is like, is this trustworthy? And I even think some people on that side, may be wondering that, right? But again, I think we will see in time. And I think that no matter what side you're on, you're accepted here. I don't want to ever make anybody feel excluded because of different fucking opinions on this shit, because I know it's a very intense topic. But I will say that the story of Ganymede was basically turned into a god and also helped the people. And so I think we can potentially see some of that in this time period, whether it's with, the current people doing that or with other people. Moving on from Pluto and Aquarius, that's happening all year. And I wanted to start with that because that really, I think, is already setting the tone for this new era, as we are already seeing with so many of the things happening in our nation, around the world, etc. Now I'm going to talk about January and February. It's very, very quick though. So January and February, these first couple months of the year have really been about slowing things down, cutting things out, reflection, facing things that we've needed to face, or facing challenging emotions or issues with home and family, issues with our past, closure, and letting difficult things go. This, Mars has been retrograding in Cancer. This has been like, hey, I know it's hard. I know there's some tense things going on here. I know there's been some wounds here in the past with family and the things that are personal to us, right? It's like the things in our past that feel very dear to us, that feel like, we haven't quite moved on from. These are the things that are very personal, very private, can sometimes hurt, but it's time to let these things go. And so this has already been a form of letting go and making space and facing the difficult things in our lives personally that we've needed to face, right? And, we've also seen other things with the Mars retrograde, domestic threats, the California fires and, all of that, and issues with water. So now we're going to move to March and talk about what the hell is going on with March, because this is one of the craziest months of 2025. Like, this is a month that is game changing. This is like, I'm calling it psychedelic spring, okay? Psychedelic spring, because March is a huge month of letting the fuck go, okay? Letting the fuck go, cleaning things out, being disillusioned, and retreating to find out what our heart's true desire is, what's really on our heart. So March is a month of even more reflection, even more letting go, right? The universe is like really trying to make sure, and I said this in my like 2025 horoscopes video in the first part, like the astrology this year is really, really making some massive points when you look at it and you look at the patterns and you look at what's happening. It's like literally going back and forth in like the same spots over and over again to be, and that's why I keep calling it the in-between year as well, to be like, okay, have you got it yet? Have you got it yet? Have you let go of this yet? Have you let go of this yet? Have you let go of that? Have you ended this karmic chapter? Have you ended this karmic tie? Have you released or healed this karma, you know? So March is a huge month of letting go, and I think also being disillusioned by things. I think this is the start of major disillusionment this year, okay? And so I think some of the things that we're going to see with this collective belief systems like may undergo deep questioning, right? Things that we thought were stable may start to feel illusory or not real or not aligned anymore in some way. Governments, institutions, or systems could be exposed for their lack of integrity or hidden deceptions, which we're already seeing, but we're definitely going to see a lot more of in March. There's also a push towards spiritual responsibility. Are we using our beliefs to escape, or are we using, them to ground them into reality to actually create something? On a personal level, I think this is a test of faith, all this Pisces energy, right? And because of that, I really want to go over the sign of Pisces here, because Pisces is a very interesting sign, and with the North Node in Pisces, basically, all year this year, and eclipses happening in Pisces and Virgo, because March is also eclipse season, this is very, very, very important. So Pisces is where the spirit metaphorically leaves the body and transcends the human experience, right? And that is because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is the last sign of the astrological year. It is where winter is now turning into spring. And spring is the new beginning. We have the spring equinox, Aries season, the first day of Aries season. This is where like the new year really freaking starts. This is where the new beginning, the rebirth, the seed that's been planted in the soil starts to bloom. Pisces is the sign right before that, right? So it's going towards the light. It's coming out of darkness and going towards the light here. With Aries, right? It's coming out of winter and going towards spring, where there is a rebirth happening, okay? But because we are coming out of the darkness and going towards the light, this is very prevalent astrologically and tells us a lot about what Pisces means as a sign. And with the cusp of Aries and Pisces being so prevalent this year, because we have so many things also happening in Aries as well, astrologically, like we are making sure that we have finished some kind of old spiritual cycle, with Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac, right? Before we start something brand new. So we have to truly transcend an old life and start really going for something new. Okay, so leaving the past in the past, forgiving, letting go of all the past lives before we begin anew. Okay, so Pisces is going into the light. Therefore, if you are going into the light, it's much easier to let all of the heaviness kind of shed off of you. It's like Pisces is transcending the human experience. It's transcending this physical, dense human experience. So it's so much easier to kind of shed things, right? It's easier to see the potential and to be more optimistic, because you're going into the light where you can see things, where things feel good, where things feel better, right? And so because of that, Pisces a lot of the times deals with expansion and letting go and forgiveness and hope and faith and possibility. So Pisces is really about unburdening ourselves and the human body and the density of this world. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and optimism. With Jupiter ruling a water sign of Pisces, a mutable water sign and the last sign of the zodiac, we basically seek expansion through internal enlightenment, right? Pisces is about going inside because it's water. We seek expansion through emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, and basically energy, going inside to awaken rather than going outside to awaken, which would more so be like Sagittarius, Jupiter's other sign that it rules. We seek expansion through internal enlightenment, internal fulfillment, through internal freedom. And we realize that the internal world is basically everything and controls everything. Energy is everything because all is one. Just like water, when you take a drop of water and you put it into the ocean, it becomes one with the ocean. You can no longer pull out that same drop of water. Water unifies things. things, right? Energy is everything, all is one. So Pisces can be very unifying us with things that we've struggled to let go of or things we've been in conflict with. Pisces is also, you know, very much on the shadow side about victimhood. And so a lot of the times we realize with Pisces, on the higher end of Pisces, when we can use Pisces to heal and transcend, we realize that we are not victims of the universe, but co-creators, okay? We are the universe itself. Again, just like a drop in the ocean. So Pisces at times can show us where we have held ourselves hostage because of something that happened in the past, or some trauma, or some victim energy that we haven't wanted to face, where we are suffering from the human condition of judgment and shame and ego and separation. Where do we do these things to ourselves? And so the key to Pisces energy is really compassion. When we can have empathy for ourselves and see that we are both the victim and the captor. Pisces is about duality as well, since it's a mutable sign, and the symbol for Pisces is a white and a black fish going inwards, right? They're going round and round, but they're also facing inwards, because the key to salvation is by going inside. The key to salvation always lives within you. So to free ourselves, we must forgive ourselves, right? Forgiveness is another huge Piscean word, a huge key word for Pisces. We must forgive ourselves for our past and for the things that we are holding ourselves hostage for, to set ourselves free and have compassion for ourselves. And we forgive ourselves, as silly as it sounds, by truly recognizing how mean we've been to ourselves, by truly recognizing that we are the ones that are causing us to suffer. Which brings us back to having empathy for ourselves and becoming one, unifying these different sides of ourselves again. So Pisces energy is about letting go of victimhood. Even if you were a victim to something at one point or another, this doesn't have to live with you. You don't have to be the perpetual victim in your life over everything because of that one experience or because of that one thing that happened to you. And trust me, I have had a lot of really dark, crazy, scary shit happen to me in my life. I have been an actual victim, you know, in my life. But I also know that it is up to me to heal that, to let that go. Because if I'm continually holding on to that, then I'm continually the victim and it continually has power over me and I end up suffering. This is finding true empathy and compassion for ourselves, which in return helps us find it for others and helps us actually truly heal within our lives. So this is the journey we are starting this year with these Pisces, with the Pisces North Node and the eclipses, you know, and they're going into next year, some of next year as well. This is really about integration, learning when to let go of control and have faith and receive and lean back. The more we let go, the more we receive, right? So learning how to flow with life and be fluid and be emotionally fluid and learning about emotional intelligence. So these will be some of the big themes that we see in the world and our lives and other people's lives. If you are ever struggling at all, get back to this nodal axis and what it really represents, because again, that's why I said a little bit earlier when I was talking about Pluto and Aquarius, like I choose to have faith. I choose to think about the things I want to create in the world and how I want to be a part of creating this new era and the new world and my own new era, rather than, you know, all of the dark possibilities of what if. Because I really trust here that the universe is correcting a lot of things, that we are not only making peace with our past and with our karma, but so is the universe. Therefore, the collective is in some way or another. So I choose to have faith and hold up higher possibility and a higher potential for us because I believe in that, right? Whatever you believe is bound to happen, right? Pisces energy shows us that anything can happen. Therefore, anything can be real. If you truly desire it from a heart-led, pure place, you can manifest it. This Pisces energy is also really asking us, like, what do we truly desire and yearn for on a soul level? I think because of the North Node here, because of Saturn and Neptune here for different parts of the year, this is also about the disillusionment of the illusions that we have been living in, the confusion, and how it has been used to, again, keep so many people in the matrix and to believe one thing rather than the truth. So the shadow side of Pisces is escapism, escaping reality, abandonment, addiction, endless cycles, emotional overwhelm, and mental health crises. So with all of that, let's get into the South Node in Virgo. The South Node is here in the sign of Virgo, opposite of Pisces. And Virgo, if Pisces, like Pisces is kind of like coming out of a dark cave and into into the light and being like, hi, I'm finally transcending and able to shed all of this baggage and unburden myself and let go of the past and let go of all these things that have been holding me down and weighing me down and that I felt so heavy, and like remembering that like I'm a soul, bliss and peace and faith and like gratitude and like all those higher vibe feelings, right? Virgo is basically going into the cave because Virgo happens in the fall, so ending summer and going into the fall. So the light is like starting to wane and we are going into the fall where there will now be equal day and night. And so Virgo is like going into the cave if Pisces is about coming out of the cave, basically, right? So Virgo is the opposite of Pisces. It's not so free flowing. It's not as faithful. It prefers to be more practical. It needs to prepare. Again, if you're going into a cave, you got to prepare. You got to be discerning. You got to be somewhat skeptical. You got to make sure that you have enough of whatever you need for your journey, right? You got to make sure that you go in at a certain time so you can have whatever you need, right? So going into the cave and being prepared is very much Virgo. It's about being organized and effective and using its time wisely and using its resources wisely. Virgo likes to have control over its surroundings and over the physical world. It likes to see how the physical world works. But Pisces is really about releasing control and surrendering and having faith in something higher. I think part of the, polarity that we could see here is like, when you are aligned with your soul and you are feeling tapped into like your soul self and you are looking at yourself from like this soul level, like of course everything feels possible when you are going towards the light. Like everything feels good and possible and blissful and great. But during these times, we can also forget that we're human and we can neglect the humanness within, which is more of the side of Virgo. This is basically the quote of faith without works is dead, right? We have to have faith, but it also has to be grounded in reality with some kind of practice behind it. So this is really about what we can control versus what we can't. Purity internally versus purity externally. So this is like flowing versus planning, right? How we influence our reality and how our reality influences us. I think purification, detoxing, cleanses are going to be really, really big in some way this year. Health is going to be really big this year. Both of these signs usually align with big topics around health. I think with Pisces involved and Neptune and Pisces throughout some of this year, there's going to be, I think, big topics of sanitation, poisonings, water, accidents or incidents, potentially contamination, things like this as well on like a collective scale that I think is going to really come out. Okay, so the next really big thing that I want to talk about, we're still in March, but this is basically going to be March and April, because the next big thing that I really want to discuss is Venus is going to retrograde from from Aries and back into Pisces. And so this starts March 1st. And she will be done with her retrograde by May, but she is going to be retrograding basically all of March. Some of April is going to be hitting the node, Neptune, Saturn. And I think this is really, really interesting with this Venus retrograde. She's happening right around the same degree as the Mercury retrograde is going to happen not long after, and that we're going to have the solar eclipse in Aries. And so again, the universe is really, really pointing its finger with this astrology and being like, look, something new is starting here, but before that needs to start, you need to go back and clean this up, right? And so what I think this Venus retrograde is going to be about is self-love as it starts in Aries. And Aries is all about the self. I also think the other side of it is also going to be about forgiveness as it moves back into Pisces. Venus in Aries, I think, is going to bring this sense of feeling good and independent and doing bold things. Like, I can do it all on my own. I'm going to do me. I want to do what I want to do. But when Venus goes retrograde, there may be a reversal, a backtrack, or a retreating. And as she eventually moves back into Pisces at the end of March, more leaning into compassion and unity again, rather than individuality. And so I think a lot of people during, right before Venus retrogrades, as Venus is moving through Aries at first and slowing down, I think a lot of people can make some big ballsy moves and, be like, you know what? I can do this all by myself, you know? And eventually, as Venus retrogrades, we may have to come back around to those in some way or another. It may not be that like you made a mistake or that you regret it, although for some people it could be, but it may just be like, oh, wait, there's some more things I have to deal with before I can move forward, right? And so the Venus retrograde is kind of like a spiritual love reckoning in a way. In Aries, it's about reclaiming our independence and love, money, and, you know, values. But again, when Venus moves back into Pisces at the end of March, it's going to be more about like illusions and nostalgia and, you know, our artistic expression and what our hearts and souls really want, especially to do with finances, love, and relationships, right? And so there's going to be a dissolving of sorts, or a forgiving that needs to happen, or a letting go that needs to happen, or a healing in some way. So I think this Venus retrograde, definitely, as Venus retrogrades usually do, may bring back old flames, past lovers, you know, especially any relationship that was very passionate, fast moving, you know, these kinds of people might resurface, forcing people to confront unfinished business again. I also think that this Venus retrograde is going to be about the need to balance self-love, quote unquote Aries, with unconditional love and compassion, quote unquote Pisces, right? So I think this is also going to be about romantic fantasies versus reality, will, I think, be a major theme, and even current lovers, right? So like, what is your expectation of your love life versus what it really is, right? I promise you guys, we aren't even to the freaking good stuff yet in this video, so I need you to hold on if you're feeling a little tired there. Hang with me. This is also, I think, about the alchemy of kind of personal will and divine surrender. If we hold on to control too tightly, we'll be forced to kind of let go in ways that we don't expect. So independence versus commitment. I think many people will kind of question if their relationships allow them enough freedom, leading to potential breakups or renegotiations in terms of boundaries. Impulsive love decisions, passion and conflict, reevaluating finances and impulse spending, risky investments. Also, I think potentially this could be, like I said, a lot about self-love. So self-worth issues, you know, confidence may be tested, bringing up themes of validation, independence, and asserting personal value, relearning self-love. So many will be challenged to reclaim their power, set better boundaries, and prioritize their own happiness, confidence, you know, things that fulfill you. Okay, so now we are moving to the April-May timeframe, and this is the tea, you guys. This is where the really big shit starts, okay? So let me know down below if you're still with me. Let's do a little roll call. Do like a comment down below, badass alien roll call. I appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, so March to May, March, April, May is like, this is more like the end of March, so pretty much April and May. But basically, this is the old era ending and a preview of the new one, okay? So the reason I'm saying that is because Neptune will first move into Aries and then Saturn, okay? So we will have two major planets moving into Aries, like, you know, within 2 months of each other. Like, Neptune moves in at the very end of March, like March 30th or March 31st, and then Saturn moves in at like the end of May, like May 25th, okay? So we'll have like almost 2 months of Neptune being in Aries by itself, and then Saturn's going to move in at the end of May. And I think this is where we are seeing the universe really signal that there is a massive new era coming, other than just Pluto and Aquarius, because that's also a massive new era, revolutionary time. So Saturn and Neptune in Aries, I think, is going to be somewhat of the bomb drop. This is the awakening, and it could be somewhat of a rude awakening for some people, honestly. The line that has been blurring what's real is going to be dissolved. And that's because, again, we're moving from Pisces to Aries. So the waters of Pisces, just like you can't really see that great when you're underwater, you know, you can't really tell what's going on. You have to look inside of yourself to really find the answers, to really find the truth with Pisces. With Aries, Aries is direct. Aries is itself. It's right in front of your face. It is direct. It is direct energy. It's fiery. And it can be a little bit sharp around the edges. It doesn't really care what other people think. It's just going to say what it wants to say and do what it wants to do. So with Neptune and Saturn, two big planets, you know, again, Neptune's been in Pisces for 14 years. This is the first time it is moving out of Pisces in 14 years, okay? So it has been in Pisces for a long mother effing time, and it is finally moving signs, okay? But Saturn is right there with it. And so this tells me that so many things are going to become way more direct and in our face. And this is where we have the option, the choice. With Aries, there's a choice, self-will. We have the option to either face it and create something new with it, or, you know, freak out about it, bury our heads in a different reality, Pisces, and act like it's not happening, or like actually create something new with it, right? Or hold on to the old and hold on to what's crumbling with Pluto and Aquarius, right? Like, it's like there's a new future. There's a new age that is really happening here, you know, a new era. This is huge. Neptune and Saturn here, this is such an interesting combination of planets. This is like the line between harsh realities and hopeful potentials. Like, Neptune's very hopeful and optimistic and sometimes confused and even delusional. And Saturn is harsh reality and harsh lessons and things like this, right? So it's like structures meeting disillusion, discipline is meeting dreams, and individuality is meeting spiritual surrender in some way, okay? And so, you know, it did take me a little bit to like really try to interpret this transit, and I kind of had to go back and look at it through history and I've really found there to be a theme that when Saturn and Neptune come together in a sign, it really marks a time of an old ideology or an old way that people used to see the world or their reality dying and a new one being born. There's already a lot of signs of that. I think that, you know, and this is why I say this could somewhat be a rude awakening for some. And this is somewhat of an awakening. You know, Saturn can awaken and so can Neptune, you know. This is an awakening, a direct in your face kind of awakening, like a bomb drop kind of awakening, like not necessarily literally. I'm not necessarily saying literally, not saying that that's not a possibility, but I more so mean that metaphorically. But, you know, this is a time where it's like, okay, you know, like it's in your face now. You can't deny it. You can fight it or whatever, but it's futile. Saturn and Neptune kind of brings this futile energy. It's like, okay, yeah, you want to fight it, you want to go to war about it, it's going to be futile, you know? So Aries as a sign, a lot of the times, you know, rules pioneers and warriors and self-starters. Like, Aries as a sign is about independence and the self and going where other people aren't willing to go. And honestly, I believe that Aries is more of the rebel of the zodiac than Aquarius, because I'm a traditional astrologer, and so Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius for me. But Aries is that kind of rebellious energy. It is like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do what's good for me. It doesn't really consider too many other people in whatever it's doing. So Saturn here in Aries demands accountability and structure and how we assert ourselves, right? While Neptune blurs the boundaries and kind of dissolves egos. And so Aries is direct and bold, but Neptune is mystical and elusive. So I think many people will start questioning their traditional belief systems and what they've been told and what they've been programmed Neptune to believe and conditioned Saturn to believe Neptune, or, you know, whatever, how they've been kind of brainwashed to think all these years. I think many people are going to start questioning this, right? Leading to a rise in individualized ideologies and belief systems, and leading to a rise in even individualized spirituality, right? But also, I think that this does come with some risk, right? Like, you know, cult-like movements, false prophets, but also I think even disillusionment with certain religions, or even certain systems, certain things that we've been told to believe, or certain, like, even historic things that we told were true that maybe aren't what we thought they were, right? So Aries is very physical since it's a fire sign, and with Saturn's discipline and Neptune's kind of healing influence, I think that we could see a lot of breakthroughs in alternative medicine, mind and body healing, biohacking, like all of these types of things, new energy sources or medical treatments, that blend kind of like science and spirituality together may emerge. And what's really interesting to me is that this conjunction is also going to be sextiling Pluto in Aquarius, which is like freaking of course, like of course. And we're going to get to more of what I think that's going to be about in a second. So Aries, like I said, is somewhat of the sign of war, and with, I think, Saturn's strategic vibes and Neptune's kind of foggy, confusing vibes, I think that there could definitely be certain conflicts in the world, but they may be in somewhat unconventional ways, like, cyber warfare or psychological operations and misinformation battles, propaganda. And since this is more of a conjunction and so many of these things are signaling new beginnings, I think this is like showing us and stripping away of where this has already been happening for a long time. So again, where we've already kind of been in some kind of cyber warfare or propaganda battle or whatever, where that's been used to confuse so many people. With Neptune as well, Neptune also usually pushes for, peace movements and awakenings and spirituality. So I think although both of these different things are possible, this is a massive awakening in some way of blurring the boundaries that have kept us boxed into one ideology or certain beliefs about the world. And I think for some people, like I said, this is going to be a rude awakening. This is going to be brutal. And potentially, I hate to say it, but potentially for some, especially with this Pisces North Node and, Uranus moving into Gemini and Jupiter being there for some of the year, I think this could also point to some kind of mental health crisis as well for some people. Just because of everything happening or, fear that is being pushed on people or whatever the case may be. I think some people it just may start becoming too much for it, or the awakening or the shock of like all the things that come out and that are exposed some people may not be able to like handle it right away, Again, I also think that this transit also points to the fall of the traditional celebrity and the way that things have been with Hollywood. I think because Neptune can rule like media and therefore Hollywood and illusions and fame, and with Saturn kind of forcing these reality checks and Aries being very direct, I think the old school celebrity model is going to collapse. And what I really think is going to take its place is a push for authenticity over manufactured and fake personas, like leading to some kind of like raw, unfiltered, storytelling and way of doing things. I think this is going to be like a lot of exposure for like independent artists, independent workers, self-employed workers, independent journalists. I think is going to become huge because I think like the whole conglomerate of the mainstream media with Pluto and Aquarius and then also Neptune and Saturn is basically going to crumble. I think, it's just not going to matter anymore, or it's going to be exposed in some way. But I think that we are going into a time where we are seeing a lot more independent, people, right? Documentary makers, indie films, like real life hero narratives with, this Neptune Saturn conjunction. It's going to be alluring with Neptune and Aries to be ballsy. It's going to be like, it's going to be the new fantasy, basically, to be ballsy, to be authentic, to be a pioneer, to put yourself out there, to do something first, to lead the pack instead of follow, right? I think, again, the exposure of major Hollywood illusions and scandals, what's been hidden, Neptune, will face accountability, Saturn, right? The breakdown of the conglomerate media and corporations, like I said, more glorification of independence and bravery. I think a lot of new age theories and concepts and discoveries and groups are going to come about. Harsh theories and harsh scientific discoveries of who we really are and where we really came from, and things that have maybe been suppressed for a long time may be coming to the surface. I think revolutionaries and just major pioneering figures, major heroic figures, are going to be what people are really looking at and looking up to around this time. I think wars are going to feel futile and exhausting for most people. I think this conjunction is bringing in this kind of massive disillusionment and awakening at the same time. And I think most people are just going to be over, they're just going to see a lot of the fighting and conflict in the world as futile. Again, I think independent artists and just like this new whole era of what fame looks like is going to really rise to the surface. Okay, so on a personal level, what I think many of us will notice with this transit of Neptune and Saturn and Aries is kind of like a death of an old dream, old ideals, old world views, kind of false realities that we were once living in, and the birth of something new, right? Like kind of as I've been saying. So the loss of old ideals, old perceptions on our lives and on the world and on who we are, like the stripping away of bullshit, basically. This is like the stripping away of all bullshit that just is fake, that does not suit us, that is cheap, that is like, not there to really bring us something of value to our soul, right? And that doesn't align with who we are authentically in some way. I think being more straight up, direct, real, passionate, raw, unfiltered, unedited, being, all of those things is going to be admirable. Independent media and artists becoming huge. Like I said, like this is, if you've been thinking about doing something like that, this is the year. This is the year where the power's back with the people, or coming back to the people with Pluto and Aquarius. So like ordinary people will rise and be relatable, right? I think a lot of us will go through like a self-redefining, a self-rediscovery where we undergo, I think a lot of people may undergo like identity crisis and have like major reinventions happening, right? Like again, who you thought you were may dissolve, and you may be kind of forced to rebuild yourself from the ground up. So I think this is a time, again, of stripping away of illusions and finding out the truth of who you really are and who you really want to be. I also think this is going to bring up balancing dreams with discipline in our lives, right? Being realistic about what we really want and what's really aligned with us. I think we're going to hear a lot about spiritual warrior energy. Like we're probably going to hear that term, spiritual warrior, so freaking much once these planets move into Aries. Because this is the perfect transit for that. Aries is about the self. It's about action. So it's like, look, if you want things to change, you got to take action. It's up to you, right? But with Saturn there, it's like you got to be methodical about it. You have to be strategic about it, right? You got to be patient sometimes, Also think this is going to be showing us like where we deceive our own selves. And I also think that this is going to be about having faith in the self, having belief in the self, and how self-belief can really get you through most things in life and help you persevere. With the sextile to Pluto, what I really think this is going to bring up is the declassifications of different unconventional weapons that have been used against the people for power in some way. So like I said, mind control, propaganda, right? Pluto in Aquarius is transforming the collective power and the power structures within the collective. And so I think with this sextile to Saturn and Neptune, there's a shift towards decentralizing things, decentralizing media, for example. Again, like I said, Hollywood won't have the same chokehold on the entertainment industry. And instead, I think individual creators on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, other social media platforms, independent streaming networks will take over. I think a lot of more AI-assisted things will start happening, maybe AI-assisted filmmaking, storytelling, where anyone can kind of generate high-quality films or series without traditional studios. I think also we're going to see, with just Pluto and Aquarius in general, we're going to see themes of dystopia, and then also with the sextile to Neptune and Saturn, technological transcendence, I think, is going to really dominate this year. And also just a lot about reflecting on the collective fears and aspirations, I think, is going to be huge this year. Okay, so I want to talk about Uranus in Gemini next, okay? This is a controversial, of course, since it's Uranus transit, because it has in fact correlated with a lot of wars in history, okay, in the past. And so I don't know for sure. Uranus is unpredictable, right? So yeah, we can say if history repeats itself, we can go by history and say, yeah, it might. Hard to say, where or who would be involved. It might, right? But I don't want to say for sure. I feel optimistic. Really embracing that Pisces faith. So I'm really hoping that that does not happen. Obviously, war is not something I'm an advocate for. I think most people are not advocates for war. I think that, peace is very possible even with this Uranus transit this year, just because of some of the other transits that we have happening. But what I will say about this transit is that this transit is going to be a revolution in information, opinions, and the mind. Again, more air energy, more mental energy, again, about the mind. And coincidentally, it's also going to trine Pluto in Aquarius. So keep that in mind too. And the three of these bad boy big transits this year, Neptune and Saturn and Aries, Uranus and Gemini, and Pluto and Aquarius are all going to, Uranus and Pluto are going to trine, and then they're going to sextile Neptune and Saturn. So Uranus moves into Gemini in the beginning of July, and I really think that this is going to be shaking up the way that we share information, our opinions, and the mind, right? Uranus and Gemini, Gemini in itself is really about common sense and logic a lot of the times. Like, it's about what we know very easily, like what comes to us very easily. But I mean, a little bit more than that. Also, like, reading and writing and speaking and learning about new things. Gemini is kind of that energy of like, jack of all trades, master of none, right? So I think with Uranus and Gemini, we are revolutionizing frames of thought, ideologies, communication, information, and speech in some way. So with Uranus and Gemini, like I said, historically speaking, it has aligned with many different wars, major wars like the American Revolution, the Civil War. And given the current global instability, this transit does raise concerns and is very unpredictable. But let's pray, let's manifest, let's have some faith, okay? So anyway, I really think that Uranus and Gemini is really going to bring up the topics of, obviously, AI, cyber warfare, potentially. I think that I want to say that if there were some kind of conflicts, wars, etc., could even involve more things like more digital battles or, again, misinformation, warfare, or AI-driven conflicts. So I also think that Uranus and Gemini is going to upgrade, because it does usually upgrade things, upgrade transportation and communication in really, really big ways. So a revolution in travel, aviation, and media, potentially, again, involving AI and things involving journalism, teleportation, prototypes, and radical new communications and tech. We're also going to see major breakthroughs in science with this transit, okay? Major breakthroughs in science and tech, AI evolution, even more quantum computing, and unexpected discoveries, I think, are going to really accelerate this time. And again, I think this, if anything, is going to be like a war on the mind, right? And I think so much of this is going to be exposed. I think some of these transits are just going to be exposing these things, right? It may not even be physical warfare, right? It could be exposing the war that maybe has already been going on for decades to do with our minds and how we have been controlled, or the reality that we've thought we've been living in that maybe we haven't, the world we've thought that we've been living in that maybe we haven't completely, right? So I think this time is going to be like Uranus and Gemini, huge intellectual breakthroughs, rebellion against outdated systems, and the rise of decentralized information in some way. So pretty much these are the big transits. What's really interesting is like after this summer, as we go into like September, Saturn will move back into Pisces and out of Aries, where it will finish its transit and finish the year in Pisces. Neptune will move out of Aries and back into Pisces in October. And Uranus will move out of Gemini and back into Taurus in November, I believe. And so a lot of these planets, these big dog planets that move, end up retrograding back into their previous signs by the end of the year. So that's why I said earlier, it's like a preview of what's coming. Like these really big transits are giving us kind of like a sneak peek into what is coming in this big new era that is forming starting this year, giving us a preview of it. So with that being said, let me know down below if any of this spoke to you. If you watched this whole video, comment down below OG badass alien or badass alien OG, whatever works for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and hanging out with me and kind of just astro nerding out with me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.